Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Simply Walk the Talk. I am your host, JoshuaJHolland, and today I have a special guest on the show. I'm really thrilled about this one because this has been a long time coming. And so we have this special guest. She's based in San Diego right now, and her name is Dr. Jo Polich. And Dr. Jo was satisfied with her career as an engineer, leading successful projects at IBM and Alcatel until her daughter got sick. She took her to specialist after specialist, but no one could figure out how to treat her toddler. In desperation, Dr. Jo bought her daughter a homeopathic remedy. And for the first time in a year, her daughter's digestive issues disappeared. Curious, Dr. Jo researched more remedies and their efficacy. She decided to leave her position as Director of Engineering and devote her time to caring for patients. She earned a medical degree and opened her own practice, delving into the science behind the treatment. Dr. Jo's first high-potency hydrogel, ActivMend, won over many respected dermatologists by healing their patients' bruising and pain. Their support was so convincing that Allergan licensed the technology for cosmetic dermatology. This was actually the first ever licensing of a homeopathic product by a major pharmaceutical company. ActivMend improves on Dr. Jo's original formula to help athletes like you get back to your sport, your routine, and your life at full speed. Dr. Jo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh, so much for inviting me. I'm also really excited because I really like a lot of things that you do, and I'm just honored to be here.
Well, yeah, it's my pleasure, and you know it's really interesting because the reason why I say this has been a long time coming is because you know we've talked through some things before, and you know we kind of got introduced by luck, if you will, and at the time that we got introduced, it was really important because, as you probably recall, I was dealing with some very weird knee pain that I did not know what the case was. And, you know, and I'll get maybe more into that story. And I'm going to do some posts about that in the future. But I think this will be a good opportunity, at least to explain my little personal testimony. And we could talk about in the future on this episode. But I want to at least start with your background, why you got into what you did, besides obviously, you know, your daughter being sick. But let's talk about exactly like how you got started.
So I have a really unusual background in that I have 3 engineering degrees and I'm a homeopath. And there's like no one in the world goes from being, you know, working on space satellites and fiber optics and being on like, you know, boards of companies, like technical boards, and then throws that all away and becomes a homeopath. You know, for the most part, homeopathy is perceived as quackery. In fact, we got the first purely homeopathic patent and we had to get past the patent office because they're like, this is quackery. This just can't possibly work. And for me, I don't really have an issue with that because I'm pretty sure that if I had not used homeopathy before I knew what it was, I don't know that I ever would have. I really, really, really believe it's possible. I would have read and been like, oh my God, this can't possibly work, and never tried it. And I'd still be an engineer working on fiber optics, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the benefits that I have is I really understand where they're coming from. I really understand why people question it. And, you know, and there's lots of other reasons. So back to my story. I was going to go off on a tangent, which will happen with me.
I love
But
it.
I basically so you mentioned, so my daughter gets sick. I've taken her to every specialist known to man. She's actually got diarrhea every single day. She's in diapers 2 to 3 times a day. And I'm beside myself. Like, we take her this specialist, this pediatrician, this test, nothing's working. And I walk into Whole Foods and I'm looking at them, and fortunately in the A's, there's one that says diarrhea. I take it home. She's 2, right? Consistent piece of data. I've also done a ridiculous amount of research and, evaluations and testing through my engineering career. And I'm looking at, and I basically give it to her, and her stools become solid. And I'm sorry, you can't tell me. My daughter got the remedy. She'd had diarrhea for a year straight, no change.
Wow.
Nothing would change it. And her stools become solid. And I'm sorry, you cannot tell me. I'm sorry, the placebo effect. If we sat there and said, make my stool solid, and you're a 2-year-old, I don't think that's going to ever happen.
Right.
And so what happens is, Google wasn't around at the time, but I started researching it, and I'm like, this shouldn't have worked. And I'm naturally a very, very, very curious person. And so I started doing mommy homeopathic classes, and I found a lot of it worked. I also found it to be one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Trying to figure out what homeopathic remedy somebody needs is so incredibly hard. And that's one of the reasons. So just to do a little segue, is the reason it's so hard is, Josh, do you know what individualized or personalized medicine is?
Yes.
Okay. So basically you're taking and you're tailoring they do this drugs. They do a DNA test and they determine what drug will work on you. And it may, like a lot of cancer drugs are this way. Homeopathy's always been this way. Mm-hmm. Imagine trying to figure out what drug works on you without the benefit of a DNA test.
Right.
That's why it's so hard. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so fast forward, I played mommy homeopath for a while. And then at one point, one of the basic things about me is I'm highly empathetic. I actually think you're highly empathetic. I think we share that. Mm-hmm. And so I realized I didn't care. So I was the director of engineering at this point. I didn't care if they got their software program done. I cared whether they were healthy. And so I realized that I really wanted to be a homeopath more than I wanted to be the director of engineering. And fortunately was able to quit my job, literally move the family across state lines to like Chicago area, which is kind of fine because I'm a Midwest girl to begin with. And I got to, I'm one of those very, very, very lucky people that got to do my passion. And so I become a homeopath for a while. And while I was in my degree is in chiropractic. So my medical degree is in chiropractic. So while I'm in chiropractic school, what happens is I cannot give somebody oral. I was using it topically, right? And so I basically was using this on patients for a while, right? Not a big deal, right? Now I watched I know from one of your podcasts that you injured yourself, and that was a major, major thing in your life. Well, same thing. So I basically ruptured my ACL, and I use this topical formulation on it. You know what it looks like when somebody's ruptured, it's like blown up. But I don't realize this, right? I have virtually no swelling. I was walking around on it 3 days later with a brace on it, but it wasn't really very painful. I don't realize this is unusual, right? But I'm a chiropractor, so I'm going to go see the best and the best to get my ACL repaired. And I go see the head of orthopedics for Northwestern, a very, very lovely guy named Michael Schaefer, right? So he has been head of orthopedics at Northwestern, known to be one of the most conservative medical schools in the country. And he'd been it for 30 years, and he's this really sweet gentleman, but he's known to be very conservative. But I don't care. I want my knee repaired. By the way, for instance, he was the orthopedic surgeon for the Bears for like a number of years. So this guy had pedigree. I wanted my knee done well. So I go in to see him and he's like, did it swell? And I'm like, no. And he's like, they always swell. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Just, it's like, fine, don't worry about it. And I told him a little bit about it. And he was like, it was sort of like, it's fine. It probably swelled. You just didn't notice. I mean, he was super sweet about it, but he was definitely not a believer, right? So what happens is I get my knee repaired and I don't use anti-inflammatories. And he's like, I don't care if you don't use the painkillers, but you've got to use the anti-inflammatories. And he's this super, super nice gentleman. And we're having this conversation and I think we're just having fun. No, I don't know. It's fine. I'm just using the same stuff. He's apparently, unbeknownst to me, very, very, very worried. I learned this later. As apparently in the absence of anti-inflammatories, at a month, your knee's locked because you've basically swollen. You can't move it. He said in the long run, it doesn't really change you still get better and stuff like that. But for that, at 1 month, you can't move your knee. I had almost full flexion and extension. So I go see, like the first time I went to see physical therapist, I go see her like in a month, right? I don't know this. Like I think I had a deficit of 5 degrees in one direction and 10 degrees in the other instead of being straight. I was walking around like a normal person relatively. And he sees me and here he's like, he finally just looks at me. He's like, Joe, I've been doing this a super long time. I think you've discovered something remarkable. You're better than 90% of my patients that use anti-inflammatories, and I know you didn't. And it was the fact that there's this conservative guy that thought I was crazy, who didn't believe me. And I've done enough research. It's just like my daughter. You don't call it on one case unless it's so far outside of anything you've ever seen. Because as researchers, we never do that. But it was so far outside, and I respected him so greatly that he's the reason I wrote my first patent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's like, you've discovered, because I knew it helped, but I thought it would only help like 20%. I didn't know it made that big of a difference. And so I write the patent, and I'm like, okay, and I decided to go into plastic surgery, not personally, but I decided to work with plastic surgeons, dermatologists, because it turns out that Arnica, so I don't know how many people in your audience know about Arnica, but it's the most commonly used homeopathic remedy. It's typically used for swelling and bruising, and I think you've used it prior to using our stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so Arnica, most of the medical community, basically, if you mention the word homeopathy, they're wondering whether you believe the earth is flat. Right? There's a high correlation there, according to them. But in the area of aesthetic medicine, actually about 90% of them use Arnica. And they've been using it for 20 years. And they're, for the most part, they either accept it, they either sell it or, recommend it to their patients. They accept it. They, worst case, will say, hey, yeah, just use it, go get it at the store. And so I didn't want to deal with the idea of trying to figure out how to convince doctors that this was worthy, right? I wanted something easy. So we decided to go into plastic surgeon dermatology. And, it took a while because we had a different product. It's actually ActivMend, which is like a patch that goes around the eyes when you have, right now, it's mostly used for dermal fillers or plastic surgery. And so I was lucky enough to get in with some really good people originally that did some evaluation, because I'll tell you, in the beginning, I didn't know if it would work, right? It's like, in the beginning, I'm like, okay, how often, do you have to wear it for 1 hour? Do you have to wear it for, 5 hours? You don't really know, right? So this is not the ActivMend, but it's basically the same sort of thing where you put it on the face, right? Or you put it on the arm. And it, it's nice, but how long do you have to wear it? We didn't really know, because it really depends on how much damage you've got, right?
Right.
And so we work with some really amazing oculoplastic surgeons, and they helped us figure that out, and they helped us understand where it was necessary. And we actually, out of this just evaluation, we had to publish, and they've got ophthalmic, plastic, and reconstructive surgery, I think is the name. Let me see. Anyway, Their premier journal, I think I've got the name wrong, but
It's okay.
they basically published this study that we did on the efficacy, and they showed that there was a 59% percent of the people were recovered ahead of time, significantly ahead of time. And so that allowed us to basically have something, show them that it worked. We also work with dermatologists, and some of the most amazing dermatologists were part of our board. And so, for instance, we had 4 past presidents, sorry, I'll repeat that. We had 4 past presidents of the American Society of Dermatological Surgeons who publicly advocated for a homeopathic product.
Wow.
That's never been done before. And it's because the simple thing was we would say, try it. You know, we would get with one of them, and one of them would be like, God, I'm really surprised. Even we had one of them, Dr. Geronimus out of New York City, where you are. Basically, he gave a talk maybe sometime last week to the European Patent Office, and he said, I didn't believe this stuff would work. And it was only because somebody basically convinced him, and he planned on starting to use it. He was expecting nothing, but he's like, I used it on people, and they were able to be convinced. And that's pretty much the way we've always done it. Is if somebody doesn't believe in it, fine, don't. Just try it. The same thing with you. You were pretty open to it.
Yeah.
But if you remember our initial talk, and like, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time, saying, oh, this is the information behind it. Just try it.
Yeah.
And the results are so significant, you don't wonder. And that's how we had probably one of the best medical advisory boards of almost any aesthetic company, except for the big guys, which were like Allergan, et cetera. And it was really Dr. Geronimus and a number of other doctors who advocated on our behalf with Allergan. And he basically just told them, this is a product you need, because think about it, if you've got a dermal filler and you have to go hide out for a week because you have a bruise, you won't get it as much. You got to plan it around your life, which is super hard. And he's like, this is something that's super important for you to have as your arsenal, because, and I believe this, you'll sell more dermal fillers and there's like injectables, or in case people don't know what the dermal filler is, if people are familiar with collagen, the old collagen stuff, the dermal fillers are the later version of the collagen. And so, a long story short, it was just like, we were very, very fortunate to have really some of the top doctors in the country who publicly would say, yes, this is amazing. And one of the things that's very unique in that world is we don't pay for endorsements. We will give people pre-product for sure, because obviously we should. But we don't pay people, because if you call me up and say, hey, I'll support you because of the fact that I want to be paid, that's not I personally think you can tell. So we don't do that.
Absolutely.
So
I'm actually glad you pointed that out, because that is important. I think from my experience, and I'll talk about that here in a bit, but from my experience, it definitely deserves just try it out, and I've gotten to the point where I've been able to do that with a few of my clients, thanks to you guys. And the same has been sort of the case. And like, one of my clients bought a bunch from the website, which I'll show here in a minute. But bought a bunch and let his father use it. His father is like 93 years old or 98 years old, something like that, and had seen a dramatic change in his pain and inflammation in his back, And so, before I get too far ahead, I want to maybe take a couple steps back, because I can't help but think, when you were talking about your daughter and how her stool consistency changed and how amazing that was, you said you went to Whole Foods and you got the remedy. What was that? Like, was it a pill? Was it a patch? Was it ointment?
So it's a pill, and I don't have any, like, I have them in the next room always, but I don't have any hanging just where I am right now. But basically, a homeopathic remedy comes in a tube, and it's this ridiculously difficult thing. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. For whatever reason, I thought she used a homeopathic remedy, like just a random, like I thought it was. It's
It was
actually that little white bottle, white,
the
I think
little white
orange, and
bottles, yeah,
yeah,
that you do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the little white bottles. And you just dissolve them under your tongue. In her case, she was two, so I don't remember. She probably swallowed it in a second because she was
yeah,
two.
right,
But yeah, so the thing that I should say that is so remarkable about this, right? And this, we won't go down this because this could be a like hour-long conversation on its own, is that even though it said diarrhea, just because it says diarrhea, they have to be individualized. So it could have been for a different type of diarrhea. The luck involved, the great grace and luck involved in that remedy affecting her. There's so much luck even involved, even though I saw the word diarrhea on the list. And I just find that like I could have very easily gotten the wrong remedy and nothing happened. I would say the
for
probability
sure.
is far higher that that did not happen. So yeah, it's just those little pills and you dissolve them under your tongue.
Yeah, I know now. I know exactly what you mean. I recall distinctively recall seeing it at Erewhon when I was in LA, and it would
Mm-hmm.
always be in the section that I would always visit. Of course, I probably visited the entire section every time I went there, but
Yep,
I like to look around. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to be clear on that because it sounds like that was the gateway into
totally. It was my
everything
gateway
else.
drug.
Yeah,
Yep.
which is beautiful, right? Because even mentioning the luck, not only did you have the luck with the fact that it said diarrhea on it, but also you've got this product that chances are it's probably for adults, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
how many do you give to a a 2 year old, and is it safe and whatever? But like you did it, it worked, and now it opened up your mind to like, well, what else is out
Totally.
there that's like that?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
totally, totally, totally opened up my mind. And you got to understand, one of the reasons that sorry, I'm fixing the sun is coming my window here. We're in California, and so the sun is always here, which is a
yeah,
lovely thing.
before we started
Um,
recording, you actually showed me a beautiful image of your home and nature, and I'm a bit jealous, I have to say,
yeah,
but
well, so one of the beautiful things about this house, but really hard for podcasts, there is not a single location in the house that doesn't have a window.
oh,
Big window. So I'm like, normally I could go like in a cubby hole. No, I guess a bathroom. I don't think I'd do this from a bathroom, but that's about the only place in the whole house that has no window, and it has a really big skylight. So yeah, so I have to worry about these things. But going back to your comment is that there was a tremendous luck involved in all of that, and it's one of the things that I feel like I'm really lucky about. Oh, I know what I was saying, but imagine, okay, I'm an engineer, okay?
hmm
Most
hmm
people are like, engineer, you must be smart, right? And then I become a homeopath, which is like, oh, you're one of those. And instantaneously, my brains went to zero. Like I was really smart when I was an engineer, but once I became a homeopath, I just became like they perceive the perception of people is like, oh, yeah,
like
you probably are just crazy.
what happened to you? Did you like
Yeah,
what happened? Did you get hit by lightning?
yes, yes, yes.
Interesting.
So,
Well, um I think this would be a good time because we keep referring to this, that, ActivMend and whatever. Like maybe we can get to a point where we can actually show, because I know you have some product there with you. Obviously, I have some product here with me as well. And I also want to direct people to the website. So I'm gonna share this for a moment, but I want to get into like as much as you can divulge, of course, but like I want to
mhm.
get into the recipe and what makes it such that it you guys have a patent, and how is this any better than any other bit of like Arnica stuff that's out there. So
Yep.
just before you go, I'm on the ActivMend website. For those that are listening, I'm just going to show this page, and there's the beautiful Dr. Joe here, their founder story. And we've got an entire section of the science behind ActivMend, and you can see I'm scrolling here, and it talks all about what's in it, how it works.
So, Josh, keep
Yeah.
going down, actually.
Okay.
Stop on the picture. Wait, stop on the picture. So, just to give people an idea of how dramatic, this tells you why the top dermatologists believed it worked.
Good
So
point.
you see the bruises below. We induced those bruising, right? And we used a placebo, meaning it's the exact same patch, but it had it basically had the active ingredient wasn't active, right? There was,
Mm-hmm.
and so then we did the same exact treatment and same exact hit. And this, by the way, was not expected originally. Honest with you, I didn't expect this. We virtually prevented. We hit them with this 3-pound bar, and normally it causes like a 2-week bruise. They see that bit a little bit of bruising. That's all they bruise. We prevented it virtually completely.
So what is the time? I mean, that's incredible. What is the time, difference in what you just mentioned with with the bruising versus?
That's an excellent question. People always ask me that question, and that is, this was the worst case bruise that ever occurred for up to, I think, 14 days. So it
The what?
wasn't that the bruise resolved faster, that it never occurred.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now do you see why the dermatologists were like, oh yeah, this stuff is amazing.
Wow.
And there's
Yes.
nothing in the world that can do that besides our product.
So there you go. I mean, it's like even just for the cosmetic side of it, the bruising, whether it's for dermatology, for cosmetology, and anything in that realm, or if you're like me and you're kind of clumsy sometimes, you bump into a table or whatever. I mean, I have bruises all the time. In fact, I mean, again, back to my little story, which we will talk about. But I had bruising, and I thought about this very thing. I'm like, oh, because there was so much swelling in my leg that I had bruising around my ankles, but I'll talk about that later.
Oh,
So
interesting.
so here's so that was the science. There's obviously some testimonials here on the website. I mean, beautiful website, well branded. Kudos to you guys for this. So there's that. Here's how to use it, and this is the detailed instructions by Dr. Joe. So like maybe you can kind of walk us through this for those who aren't watching this, maybe just listening. Maybe we can talk
Mm-hmm.
about the fact that I'm on the site here and how to use it. And maybe you could because I know you have some patches there. Maybe you can also do the same thing by just
Yeah.
hopping on and showing.
So a couple of things, and we'll talk a little bit about, we're much better at prevention than we are resolving, meaning that if you've already got a bruise, the likelihood of us resolving it, we'll resolve it maybe a little bit faster, but not dramatically. And let me actually say this point. Ethics and honesty, this is something when you're talking about pet peeves later, you're going to ask me that question. This is a real big thing here for me. I strive, not that I'm perfect, to be as direct and honest and answer the question to the best of my knowledge in every case, right? And so we want to be really good about telling people this is what it does, this is what it doesn't do, and we do not want to mislead people. In fact, one of the things that we do, which I don't think happens on very many websites, we literally have this big chart that says, yeah, if you have this problem, don't buy our product. We want you to be really, really happy, and therefore we want to say, hey, don't buy it if it's not for you. So with the bruising, it's much better at preventing it. So it's not, and this applies to everything, even when you hurt yourself. The faster you can get it on, the better. So let's say you sprain your ankle. So let me jump back to one of the things. So the product that we had for bruising is now been licensed to Allergan. Allergan owns that product. It is no longer mine. So what we did was we still own the technology. They just own products with Arnica and Leadum, which is 2 ingredients. The product that will not do sprains and strains. I don't know if you guys can see, but the product here has 6 ingredients, Arnica, and then 5 other ingredients. And those are really for ligament, tendons, soft tissue. Now, in an acute situation, you can dramatically reduce the swelling, the pain, and get you back faster. But the faster you use it after in an acute case, and acute means I just sprained my ankle. Sorry, I sometimes use medical words. By the way, Josh, you can always ask me to define something. But let's say you twist your ankle. You want to get this on as soon as possible, okay? And it's not like, oh, if you get it on in a couple of days, it won't work at all. But it will help. The faster you get it on, the more it's going to work, because it prevents better than it actually does, like resolving something, because it's a long story. I won't get into the medical thing. So first of all, get it on as fast as possible. If you've had a bruise for a couple of days, yeah, it'll probably help, but it wouldn't be like my top 10. I wouldn't be like, oh, rush to the, get it, right? And one of the other things is that it basically it works on soft tissue, ligament, tendons, muscles, like the fatty tissue that you have here. But if you've broken your bone, and I'll talk a little bit about you when you were playing basketball and how you broke your bone, it's not going to help you directly. We can't help the break of the bone, and we will do nothing with it. Would we probably affect some of the soft tissue surrounding? Yes. But if you think about it, if you break your bone, basically the bone's going to be, it's not going to, I don't think it'll, in most cases, change the pain that much, because the major pain is coming from your bone. It might affect the swelling a little bit, which might be nice. I know I personally broke one bone in my body and I was able to walk around. I broke my ankle, and I didn't need a cast. It was a side of the ankle that's not weight bearing. So all the orthopedists are like telling me I'm an idiot. And I just made sure I had it locked down. But it allowed me to basically play, the day they allowed me, so I hadn't gone to PT at all. And the day they allowed me to, play, I played beach volleyball that day, because I never really lost, because I was able to reduce the swelling. I didn't really lose it. So the key is, it will help. It also helps in the chronic stage, meaning, let's say you've had a sore shoulder. Like I flipped over a bike years ago and hurt this rotator cuff, right? And so every once in a while, so again, people don't know that I'm one of those super factual people, but hopefully they will get that I try. So one day I basically realized my shoulder hurts me, right? And mostly I noticed it when I went to take the diet soda. Yes, I drink diet soda. It's terrible for you, but I drink diet soda. But I went to put it in the refrigerator, and I couldn't lift this arm enough to get there. And so I put it in this hand and put it in. And I'm like, okay, you're really they had been bothering me a little bit, but getting, that was the most that it was. And so I literally put this patch. I'll show you. It's basically,
and if you're just listening, Dr. Joe has pulled out one of the patches from the ActivMend kit. Yeah.
So I basically stuck it in the shoulder like this, and I didn't make it really beautiful. I'm sure you can make it better. But I will honestly tell you, by the end of that night, I could raise my hand with a bottle all the way this high.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is okay. So for the skeptics out there, because we certainly are going to have skeptics, and I think these are some of the people that end up becoming some of the best customers, right? Is because once they do try something like this, right, then these are the best people to actually speak for you, right? So so I do want to address some things that I think maybe the skeptics might be thinking, but and it's perfectly okay. You address the placebo effect, and we both know, you and I know, that the placebo effect actually is a standard of measure in science, right? That means because it is effective. So I always say, even if it is placebo effect, if you end up feeling better, you heal faster, you do all these things, then it was worth it, regardless of if it was placebo or not. But in your double-blind study that we just showed earlier, also the sort of N of one experience with your daughter who's 2 years old, she doesn't understand placebo, right? So these things are enough to get me to go, let me look into this more. But let's talk about how a person would use it, because you did mention, which I think is amazing. You mentioned get it on as soon as possible, but then how long do you leave it on? Are there things that you can do to enhance it? Are there things that you should stay away from, like contraindications, things like that? Let's talk about some of those things.
So yeah, and I don't think I actually answered. You asked me to give me the instructions, and I basically talked about, I showed you, but I didn't really talk about it. So I'll do that as well.
Okay.
So I completely understand that people would question this, right? I mean, I could be they obviously trust you, but I could be a snake oil salesman, right? Really. I mean, it is
Right.
really one of our biggest issues. And it's one of the reasons that I decided very early in that I just want people to try it. And so we actually offer 100% money back guarantee. You literally, like, we don't even require you to send it back. We're just like, try it. But the one caveat, you can never buy it again. Like, we will block you because
Right.
it's sort of,
Right.
we don't want the people that are disingenuous. But other than that, it's like, try it. And if it doesn't work on you, I will very gratefully be like, thank you for trying it. I super, super appreciate that. But so there's a lot of like, okay, so I'm telling you, and I didn't really mention this, that I am going to accelerate your healing. We didn't actually talk about that, but that's what this actually does. So a painkiller, so I think that this is what a perfect podcast for this, because this is who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can probably talk about this even better than I can. I haven't practiced chiropractic in ages. But okay, so let's say you've hurt your shoulder, right? Let's say you're lifting, right? You
Mm-hmm.
put a painkiller on, you can actually hurt it worse,
Of
because
course.
the reason the pain is there is to say, don't do it, right?
It's like, yeah, it's like a check engine light.
It's a check engine light, right? So what ends up happening is people will use painkillers and go through their workout, and my concern is that they actually hurt worse after they do it. The difference is here, we don't block the pain in any way. What we do is, so let's say you, and you send the cytokines is something you do to repair areas, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
say that, Josh, you hurt your shoulder and you're sending 50 cytokines, right? What appears to happen, and one of the other things I want to be really clear, I do not have the clinical studies to support this. This is my personal belief, and I'm doing that because A, I want to be super honest, and B, I could be wrong, right? And so what I've observed, having been a homeopath for 20 years, is that what happens is so the body normally sends 20, say 50 cytokines. Let's say we send 5 times, we amplify that response, and we will send, say, 250 of them. And it makes your body say, hey, I need to work on this, and I need to work on it hard. So that's all we're doing, is we are amplifying your body. So
Right.
one of the points is, we can't heal something you can't personally heal.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So if it's something like scar tissue, perfect example. Somebody has frozen shoulder, my product's not going to do a darn thing for them, because this is a scar tissue, it's a fixation, right? It's not something where your body can heal it, at least not directly. And so one of the things that's super important is that, again, we try to be very, very specific. We can heal where you are. If you've got tendinitis, meaning short term, not short term, but there's not a significant amount of scar tissue, we can do tendinitis. Tendinosis, it depends. If there's a lot of scar tissue in there or various other things that are not healable, we won't be as effective. Now, I will say that it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I would try it, because most cases in tendinosis, we can help it enough that it gets you back into your vein.
Exactly.
So I will ask you, that was kind of a really complicated esoteric thing. Any questions about that? Because it's really a complicated concept.
Well, I think something that might be helpful for people to hear is
Mm-hmm.
when you and I had a conversation and you were educating me about taking it, because again, I was in this situation in which, like, we had a talk and I'm like, oh, well, perfect timing, I guess, because my knee is swelled up. I don't know what it is. I'm going to get an MRI. I was unfortunately unable to get an MRI when I was in New York, so I had to wait to get the MRI in Budapest. And before I got my MRI in Budapest, I had already gotten the ActivMend product.
Mm-hmm.
So I just was like, you know what? I got to continue working. I got to continue moving. I love doing my thing. But before I took it, you made sure to tell me, okay, look, if do you know what's going on? No, I don't know what's going on. Okay, well, if it's something that is like bone or something beyond like soft tissue, then the product won't work. And I remember kind of cutting you off and saying, well, wait a minute, because even if it was bone, if you can get the inflammation to kind of slow down, or you can speed up the inflammation from going away and letting lymphatic drainage happen faster and all these things, then you might be able to spend less immune system energy on that point of healing, and you might ramp up the healing process. So I just was kind of like, no, I want to get my hands on this stuff because I want to try it. So I put it on, and the product that you gave me, you said you could wear, I think, even up to 72 hours. And so I strapped it on, and I did. I literally wore it for 3 days, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is unreal, because my knee was literally like a football. It thing was huge, and it scared me. And I thought for sure, I was like, okay, I must have like messed up my MCL or ACL.
Yep.
Chances are something happened, right? But I needed to get the swelling down to even be able to figure out what's happening, right? Well, by the time I went to get my MRI, my swelling was almost completely down, to the point where I'm thinking they probably think I'm crazy because I ordered this MRI. There's nothing really wrong with my knee. Yeah, there was a little bit of tightness and tension and things like that. But they give me the MRI, they read me the results, and they're like, "Well, Josh, yeah, you had a bit of inflammation, but everything seems fine." And I'm like, "This is so weird," because either and that took me about, let's say, from start to finish, I would say it was about a 2-month process. I
Mhm.
got ActivMend probably in the middle of that. So let's say about a month and a half, I went from like being unable to move, did the 3 days of, ActivMend, and then, I was able to kind of move a little bit better and work through things. I did cryotherapy. I stacked everything I could to try to get my knee better. Okay. Now, the doctors, the physical therapists, they're like, well, wait, you told us that it was this and it was that, but it's not looking like that now. And I'm like, well, because I tried this product, and I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, you know, I've been
The
taking
same
stuff.
thing. Just fix my knee. It's the same thing when I went to the doctor. It's like I
Right.
just need my knee fixed. I'm not going to have this. Yeah.
In fact, good point. I'm glad you said that, because I distinctly remember I was sitting with the doctor, and, it was a checkup, it was a follow up, right? And so he's like, "Hey, so how's everything going?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, it's seems to be fine." He was like, "You've been using the you use a prescription, right?" Because he gave
Oh
me
yeah.
a anti-inflammatory. I didn't take one.
Anti-inflammatory. Yeah.
I didn't take one pill, or I didn't use any cream, right? Because I was onto something, and I wanted to try something out, and I was able to move enough to where, like, whatever. If it got worse, I would put it on, or I would use it. He assumed that I used it, and I just was like, yeah, I took it, but I didn't take anything, right? Because I used the ActivMend. So I then thought, okay, we got to talk more, and this is why you and I reached out, and we kind of started to be in better communication. And then fast forward to the holidays recently in December here, I'm in Oklahoma, and I'm ramping up my workouts again, doing some sprints and doing some tree climbing and CrossFit style workouts. And the same thing happened to my left knee.
Really?
Something happened to my left knee, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And if people are really savvy and they really follow my work, you might have seen in one of my videos, I showed me doing meditation, sitting on like
Hmm.
a floor cushion, and I couldn't fully bend my knee to sit in lotus, or to sit in, crisscross applesauce. um, I couldn't sit right properly because my left knee was bothering me. And you may have noticed, but I had like a wrap around on my knees because I have ActivMend on it, right?
Mm.
Now, so I told you in Budapest, that whole situation took me about a month and a half to a month, starting with 3 days of ActivMend. This time I thought, oh, I know exactly what's going on. I'm not going to wait to try to get an MRI. I'm not going to wait to put on ActivMend because I had it already with me. So for anybody
Mhm.
listening, it's better to go ahead and have it in case something happens, kind of like insurance, right? I luckily had this here. I strapped it on, and in 1 week, I went from football size knee, and my roommate, he's not here right now, but my roommate can vouch. He can vouch for me. I was like, what? So I mean, now I'm back to doing normal workouts. My knee feels still a little bit like uncertain, right? So I'm still being a little bit cautious. But the fact that I'm able to take that inflammation way down, and I mean, I'm talking from it was so swollen that my ankle, like I couldn't even put on my shoe properly, or I couldn't put on a sock, and there was bruising around the ankle because there was so much drainage. So anyway, long story short, the ActivMend stuff is I love it, and I've told so many of my friends and clients about it. But anyway, that's just my little story.
No, it's pretty awesome because I didn't know about the Christmas. Like that's the first time you told me that story.
Yeah, this was recently, but see, I
Yeah,
wasn't worried because I kind of knew what to do,
like a
and
Superman.
well, I mean, it's just funny that like we I did some content around these things, and I'm just like, well, kind of like the first time, this was like perfect timing because I
Yeah.
actually had an because let's be fair, back to the honesty thing you're talking about, like
Hmm.
I don't want to just put a patch on and tell people I use this for this. No, like my knee was jacked up. I took pictures of it,
Yeah.
and I still have pictures of it, and I can show people. Maybe I'll add the pictures in on this actual episode, but like it's night and day.
Yeah.
So
But see,
yeah,
you can imagine why I'm so passionate about it, right?
of
So,
course.
because like we haven't, we'll get to the instructions at some point because we keep going into other conversations. I promise you, I'll like make sure we talk about it. If not, anyway. Um, but so I ended up stopping practicing homeopathy. So I go and I practice homeopathy and I end up inventing this thing, and I realized it was a conscious choice of I can help hundreds of people as a homeopath. I can help millions of people with ActivMend. And I have to tell you straight up, I far prefer being a homeopath than running a company. So much more similar to my personality style. But I know this is more important. Bringing this to the world is just so much more important. So,
That's
yeah.
big vision stuff. That's
Yeah,
big
and it's
vision.
like you can't help it. But it's like, you and I are both really, really lucky in that we get to our work is our passion. There's not everybody that's out there that gets that.
That's so
Not
true.
everybody. So
That's so
so let
true.
me let me jump back to the instructions since you've asked me like 17 times and I keep going off on a tangent. Um,
Please.
so it's really simple. So here's the patch for those of you that are just listening to this. It's I don't know, it's like a 3x5 ish, and it's a gel. It's actually the same kind of gel that you'll find in like an icy hot. So it looks roughly like that, right?
Like an ice
And
hot
so
patch.
like an icy hot patch. Now the product, the active ingredient, it's patented by the way. The active ingredient is Arnica, Ledum, Rostock, the number of ingredients. Most people won't know what they are, so I'm not going to bother going through them. But you just basically, let's say you've sprained your wrist. You just want to get it around. You don't want to cut it. You don't want to cut it because the efficacy depends on the size. And if you cut it, it's like a pill. You ate half a pill and you've got half the efficacy. So you really don't want to cut it. This will stay on for 24 hours. This one doesn't last as long as the product I gave you for your knee. This one will stay on for 24 hours. Then 24 hours is done. You just take it off. Now, we have a variety of tapes that you can put around depending, everybody's different. Everybody's skin is different. People are like, oh my God, I like the tape. I hate the tape. It's like, yeah, you have dry skin, you have wet skin, you sweat a lot, whatever. It's very, very self. This is actually kinesio tape.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we use kinesio tape to hold it in place. This is just a nice little wrap. Like this, I would probably use for my wrist because of the fact that it just wraps back on each other and is super comfortable. But for like a shoulder, you might want to use kinesio tape because you obviously can't wrap this around your shoulder.
Right.
You want to keep it on continuously for about 5 days. Yes, you can use it less, but the efficacy will change. And there's a lot to say that you get the healing, you continue the healing, and you work it through till the point that it's completely better. And for the most injuries, obviously you can jack something up enough that you're going to need to have it a little bit longer. Like, for instance, somebody had a 3/4 tear in their rotator cuff. He had to use 2 applications. I'm not surprised at all. It's like, this is really for minor stuff. And so you basically put it on, you leave it on, you can shower with it, or I shouldn't say you should shower with it. You can exercise with it, but it really depends on your comfort. Some people take it off, put it back. It comes in a little pouch. Some people put it back in its pouch when they go exercise. That's a great idea. Some people wear it with exercising. When you're in the shower, you're probably better off taking it off, unless it's completely secured around the outside. Like, if you completely tape the edges, you can probably take a shower with it. But I will tell you, for every single person, they have different preferences. So just take it off, go into the shower, put it back on when you're done. And the main thing is you should notice, it's like, how quickly will it get better? It depends. It depends on, there's so many things. This with physical therapy, right? And when you're working with a client, it's like if they said to you, how soon will I be able to bench press like 150 pounds? Like, you couldn't answer that question. There's so many variables in that, right? And so it's the same thing here. It's like, for the most part, this would be normal, but it depends on how healthy you are, how much muscle you have to begin with, how badly, in my case, it's you're damaged. And so, but for the most part, we chose the 5 days. And so when you get this, you actually have 5 patches in it. So it has enough for the full 5 days. And the objective that we consciously chose that as an amount that would help most people. Most, over the counter, it's not, if you need to go get surgery or something like that, that's not the over the counter world. The over the counter world is, I've got a relatively minor injury and I want to get better. And so, did I do better on the explanation on how to use it?
Perfect. Thank you for that. I do have one question, just so I'm clear, and so the listeners and watchers, the viewers are clear as well. So there's 5 patches in there, which would mean 5 treatments, right? Because you could use one patch for 5 days, or you should use it for 5 days.
No. Only 24. These only are 24. I won't go into it, but the bottom line is these are 24. So these will last for 24 hours, and you just replace them every 24 hours.
I see. There you go. Yeah. So, okay, if a person takes 1 shower a day, you take it off, toss it, right?
Yeah.
And then just get another one when you get out of the shower, and there you go. Okay. No, so I'm glad that I wanted to clear that up, because I was thinking, oh, okay, because what you gave me, and we don't have to go into it too much, but like, I got a special bit because, whatever, I was able to leave mine on for 3 full days, and I did so, so yeah.
These won't last that long. They're not, the gel's a little different. And so,
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, so you get your box. I would assume that people, like, if they're interested in trying this, they should definitely get it, because you just never know when something's going to happen. But take Dr. Jo up on her offer on, just trying it out, and just understand that she's trying to do good things. And so be honest about your experience with it, right? Because there's a difference between it working and healing you, quote unquote. I'm doing quotes for people who are just listening. So there's a difference between healing you and helping to accelerate your healing, right? And I think that's important, because that's what you claimed is happening here, is that you're helping to accelerate the healing. So I don't want you to be stuck with a whole bunch of people asking for refunds when they did get somewhat better, but they were hoping that they would be completely healed. That's an important distinction, I think.
Yep. And so, and by the way, thank you for making that point, because it's definitely a function of the person. If somebody, like, we have, like, up until we did this, I'd virtually never seen anyone that didn't respond. But, my patient base is a really healthy patient base. there tend to be people that take care of themselves. They're not on, 17 different medications. And so if there was anybody, like and I strongly suspect your listener base is not this, but, if you are in really poor health, you've smoked your whole life, et cetera, et cetera. If you ask me, I'd be like, yeah, maybe this isn't the right product for you, because we amplify what you're normally doing. And if there's nothing to amplify, we can't amplify it.
So get your life together, people. Get your lives together.
Yeah, it all comes around how you treat yourself. So yeah.
Okay, so before we start wrapping up, I would like to ask, what are some potential synergistic components or compounds that can be used with this patch, and what are some potential contraindications?
So synergistic, you want to do all the things that you're going to normally do, like you're going to do like physical therapy, et cetera, et cetera. This really doesn't, you don't really need to add anything like to make it go into the skin. There's no need. It goes in just fine, and we don't see that as an issue. But I definitely believe it's very, very, very good to do things like physical therapy and things that, to the limit of pain, you basically keep working the muscle or ligament or tendon. So those, like all of your normal ones, are just super, super good. And then anything that increases the blood flow to the area. I'm not a fan of cryo because it doesn't. It actually reduces the blood flow.
That's a good point.
But I'm really into, like, you can do compression and all the other ones that you're doing. And then just doing the basic things to support your health, which is, make sure you're taking all your nutrients, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it. Yeah, I guess the reason why I was asking that is because, if the person listening or viewing this is somewhat similar to how I am, I like to test a lot of things and try a lot of things, and so if this worked, maybe this could work. If it doesn't, then I can tell people about it. Like, don't try that. Or if it does really work, then you should try this, right? So, like, I like to think about things that are I guess foundational things to have at the house, and that's like topical magnesium, maybe some CBD oil, or some kind of CBD ointment. I even use C60, but I just was curious, like, would, if a person happened to be using that anyway, and they put the Arnica patch on, the ActivMend patch on, would it counteract it, or is it okay, or what were your thoughts?
One of the things is that I would. So one of the problems is that there's not been nearly as much research as one should have with homeopathy. So there's a lot of unknowns. I'll straight up tell you. Again, I'm always trying desperately to be as honest and open on anything I state. I would say that the only one, and this is not, again, none of this is clinically proven, so I want to be really clear. These are my opinions in all of this, being an engineer that thinks through things very scientifically, more than most people actually. And I would say that the only one that now you reminded me is, if you had a steroid injection, I wouldn't use it, because the steroid basically blocks your process. It stops you from doing the things you normally do, and they're working at cross purposes. As far as the other things, I just, I guess I'm a purist to some degree. That is, the first time you use it, I would use it alone, because you won't know whether, if you're putting 5 things on it, you never know which one. And I think from, my experience, like, I will tell you, the normal therapy for, like plastic surgery is ice and things like that. For the most part, we didn't see people needed it anymore, because this was way, way more effective. So,
that's amazing.
You can do it, and it's not going to be counterindicated, but it's really not that necessary.
So this is one of those moments where, again, I just want to at least put my experience out there, because I do what I do, and because you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's why we're talking.
Right. And so, to your point, I did exactly what you mentioned, which is, when I was in Budapest with my right knee, I only use the ActivMend patch for those first 3 days, And I was like, oh, well, this is good. I mean, of course, I did. After it, I did try a few other things because I'm kind of like, well, if this worked and the inflammation has come down, then what can happen if I use more and
Hmm.
whatever. So the second time around, I thought, well, I know ActivMend works because it worked on me already.
Hmm.
Now let's see if I can speed it up by doing all these other things. And I'm talking daily PEMF therapy. I did the compression, the Compex compression boots, the air boots, sort of like Normatec. I did CBD, C60. I even used DMSO, but I did it after all of
Oh,
me using
totally
ActivMend,
awesome. Yeah.
you know, and and again, all I can say, and it's an N of one study, very anecdotal, but I dramatically reduced my recovery time or increased my recovery time. However you say
Accelerated.
that.
We'll use the word accelerated, that
Thank
works.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I accelerated my recovery time, which for most people, it doesn't even matter if you're a business person, if you're an athlete, if you're just someone who wants to be healthier, like the statement said in the bio that I read at the beginning, like this is just to help people get back to doing what you do and living life at full speed. Why not? Right?
Yeah. And
So,
the key that I love about what you did is everything was about healing you.
yeah.
And to me, I mean, that's a passion for me. I like blocking pain or blocking what your body normally is meant to do is not my, that's, I will tell you, I've studied engineering systems, crazy numbers. They have never seen anything as well designed as the human body. It, like, we've got thousands and thousands of years that we perfected how we heal, and just keep it going. Like all the stuff that you did, it was about moving your body the way it's meant to do, and just helping to heal. And because blocking the pain, taking an aspirin, it sometimes you need to do that. I'm not saying that, but if you can possibly heal it rather than just taking a pain blocker, I think you're just doing so much better for yourself.
Well, thank you for that. It's this amazing input. Um, One question that I definitely know people are thinking at this point: enough, Doctor Joe, enough, Josh. Like, how much is this thing? Like how much am I coming out of pocket to make my inflammation better?
So this, which again, no matter how long you've been sick, or for the most part, it's $79, and it should make you better. Like you should, for the most part, I would say at least more than 50%. I would say most people actually, it will get them to like be able to go back to doing what they love to do, whatever sport, whatever activity it is. And the key is healed. You know, you're working with a sore shoulder. It means it's not going to be as strong. You want that shoulder completely healed, and then it's going to be stronger. Then you can get better. So
So, thank you for that. I'll go even a step farther, and just ask people to think about the cost compared to going to do acupuncture, going to do cryotherapy, going to do to get a massage, to do all the things that you won't even bat an eye at going to do because maybe
mhm.
it's given you some benefit in the past. But like, I'll be honest, when I was in Budapest before I got the ActivMend and before I did all these things, I did acupuncture, and I mean, it hurt. It hurt, and it was expensive. I mean, I think it cost me $120, and
In
that's
Budapest,
yeah, yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And that's one time of maybe doing something, maybe. Whereas, I could have gotten a box of patches and spend less than that. So I want people to at least understand that, like, even just to go do cryotherapy, I mean, it's gonna run you about 40 or $50. So just keep that in mind. That's a one shot thing. This is something that's potentially going to help to get you back to doing what you want to do faster. And I think that's worth everything. So,
Thank you for that, because
of course.
we really, it's interesting. And, you and I, we didn't talk much before we did this. And so it's been super awesome that you bring up one of the points that we agree on. It's like we are in, we're basically competing with therapies, because
Yeah.
we do the same thing they do. We're all about healing people. And the beautiful thing for us is, I don't know. So I hate going to doctors, and I don't even like getting my hair cut. It's like, I just don't even, none of that. Right. And so the idea that I can put something on at home, I can go do my thing, and I don't have to organize a time that I have to be there at 3 o'clock is so awesome.
Yeah.
But that's me. I'm rather annoying that way.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. I'm certain that we got a few people interested and curious about trying this. Take her up on the offer. I'll do as best I can to kind of link to everything in the description, in the show notes, things like that. But as we start to wrap up, was there anything that you can think of that we didn't get a chance to touch on that would be important for people to hear before we start to do the
No,
closing
I
questions?
think you did great questioning. I really enjoyed the process,
Cool.
and no, it's really awesome. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, um, when I have guests on the show, people who follow me and all of my loyal listeners and viewers, they know what's coming, right? So, I like to ask two questions to every guest that comes onto the show. And the first question is, Dr. Joe, what is something that you would consider would be like a top pet peeve or two?
So probably the one pet peeve I have is simply honesty. It's like, I can't say I never lie, because I definitely have done a white lie or two in my life, especially if I'm protecting somebody. But I really don't trust, like, if somebody lies to me, I don't ever trust them again. And it's, for me, I have a real issue with that. And so I would say that's a really big pet peeve, is that if you lie to me, I can't trust you again. That'd be my
That,
biggest pet peeve.
that might be the first actually on this show. Lack of honesty, right?
Really?
Lack of honesty. That might be the
I'm
first.
curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I,
I guess maybe because, yeah, it is kind of surprising because I think many of us don't like lying, right? But I think it's become so ingrained and so normalized in today's society that it's kind of like, well, you're gonna deal with it, so you know, maybe it's not so bad. But no, you're right. I mean, it's annoying. It's annoying
mhm,
to not be told the truth. So
yeah.
I'm with you on that. Do you have another one? Is there another one that stands out?
So that would, honestly, no, nothing that I can think of that stands out. Like, because the rest of the stuff is kind of mad. It's like, I can deal with most of everything. You don't like the angry person. You want the person, those things. You don't like people yelling at people but those are like, whatever. You don't run into them that much. But I would say the lying is probably my biggest one.
Okay, great. Um, and now, like the more beautiful one, the question that I love to bring out of people because I just love to hear the responses. It allows me to stay mindful of the various things that I consider to be that I'm grateful for. So, Dr. Joe, what is something that you're most grateful for?
I have to tell you, this one I could do like 55 things. This would be the easy one for me, because I just think I lived a really lucky life. It's like, where I live in San Diego. I live in this really beautiful place that the weather's really awesome. I got to be a homeopath. It's like, I would have been perfectly happy being an engineer the rest of my life. I really am very grateful for the fact that I went into that Whole Foods that day. And just
Mm,
the really, like like some of the doctors I worked with, like, there's, like I mentioned, Roy Durano. So you're in New York City. Look him up. He heads the New York Dermatology Society in New York City. This man is big, and he's kind enough to support this little baby company because he cares. I mean, I can tell you just tons and tons of other people that are like that. And I'm just so grateful for the kindnesses that have been done, and the luck that I've had.
that is so beautiful. And if he or anyone else that's watching that is a part of that, I'm sure you must feel it because I feel it even just coming off of you, out of you from the other side of the screen. That's very beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. Okay, well, I'm sure people, if they didn't get a chance to see what I shared with my screen, they may have heard me talk about the website. But could you
Can I add
run
one
people
thing,
through?
Josh?
Yeah.
So one of the things we do is every single person that orders gets an email. It's a spam. I mean, it's an email from an email server. But you reply to that email, I will personally answer. So if
Uh-oh.
anybody wants to, so we can
Uh-oh.
put it up on the screen, but it's dr.jo at activemend.com. So just know that. And somebody's got a question like, you're crazy. I don't believe this is possibly true. Please explain this. I'll answer it as best I can.
Well, that's a big undertaking, Dr. Joe. I don't know how many people listen to this show, but get ready.
Yeah, no, it's super awesome because it is my favorite part of my job.
Okay. All right. Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And so with that, like how can people best find out more about you, the company, and how can they, buy their products and all of that stuff?
So basically you go to activemend.com and I'm sure you'll just put something up where you'll put that information up, but it's activemend.com. You can find basically all sorts of stuff there. You can find me on LinkedIn. There's also Arnica website, which is the company's name, and they're all interconnected. And you can stalk me quite well that way. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. Like, of course, you've got you guys are very active on Instagram. I see that. You're also on Facebook. And by the way, those that are listening and maybe haven't had a chance to write anything down, ActivMend is spelled without the E on active, so it's ActivMend.com. ActivMend.com. I believe on Instagram it's just at ActivMend.
Yeah.
And I'm not, huge on Facebook, but I think you guys are the same at Facebook. So that's that. You heard it. She gave her email. She mentioned like when you get your product, you get an email. Respond to that email because chances are, if you have any questions or you just want to talk to her because she's a cool person, then do so. Anyway, Dr. Joe, I really appreciate your time. I want to thank you for all that you do. I really, really think you're onto something, which is the reason why I have you on the show and the reason why I continue to want to work with you. And maybe we can have you back on once we get some more, studies or testimonies or who knows, maybe we talk about something else you invent. So,
Sounds awesome. Well,
yeah.
thank you so much, Josh. I really, really enjoyed this. And it's just been great talking to you.
Awesome. Okay. And to all the listeners and viewers, thank you for your time as well. As always, don't forget to subscribe, click the links, do all this stuff. And most importantly, please don't forget to share because this is the best way to support this show. So share it with someone that you think might benefit from this. And this is the way that we truthfully help the world. Okay. So let's heal everyone. Let's heal our loved ones. Let's heal this planet. And let's just share the love. All right. So this is Josh signing out. Peace.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen. Better come give us a minute or two. Open the box up, we giving you tools. Giving your engine the fuel that it needs. Breathing into it, it's autoimmune. Make a connection, we're stronger in two. Making us one of a kind of a few. Work on the mind, but show me your moves. If you do what you say, you know what to do. Yeah.
Simply walk